it didn't reflect quite as explicitly is the goals that we set out at the end.
No,
and so I would point out to the board, one of the challenges here is that Dr. McCleary is going to be rated on a tool that we're coming up with at the end of the process, which, that troubles me a little bit. That troubles me, the fact, I mean, when, any of us that go into, a performance appraisal year, they say, okay, here's what the performance appraisal is looking like, here's what the goals are set out and stuff like that. Now, I'm not that bothered by it in the sense that I've looked at the 13 areas and they align very well with the goals that we set forward. So it's not like the 13 areas that Board on Track has are over here and our goals were over there. But I do want to point out that we are developing a tool and he's going to be rated using that tool at the end of the rating period. And we just have to look at the data in that context.
So if I could just comment though, I think if you look at those areas, those are fundamental competencies.
Absolutely.
And they're assumed.
Absolutely.
Right. So we're evaluating based on those as well as goals, which is typical in
and they've been used across 75 organizations and stuff like that. Absolutely, I understand that. But let's face it, we didn't have it at the beginning of the year saying here's what these are rated. And then the other thing is there are 13 areas here, okay, and they're all being treated as the same, and they may not be of equal importance. And there's no way of doing that other than in the narrative at the end.
Yeah, that's what the small group
Okay.
does.
So if one of us thought, for example, communications with the Amsac community is of paramount importance, there's no ranking here other than to add these. So this brings me to the question of, can we add questions to this
in the future?
I don't believe so.
I'm sorry?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
It's fixed. Their tool is fixed, but there's that open response at the end.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question. Can we add open response? Can we add open response questions? Because if we, the open response questions are the CEO's most significant accomplishments or strengths demonstrated this year?
Those were the required ones. Every single question had an open response.
Correct, but at the end, correct, there's an open response at the end which says you can provide additional comments or specific examples. And so, for example, if we wanted to sit there and say, this is the most important area for me, and I rated them very highly or whatever, then you could do that. But at the end, there are 3 open ones here. There are, what are the CEO's most significant accomplishments or strengths? What are the top 3 things the CEO should do next year to move this organization forward? Listing key challenges year ahead for the CEO and or the organization. Okay.
So are you asking if we can add additional open response questions to that?
So my original question is there's no weighting. And I'm trying to figure out if there's a mechanism for us to provide weighting to our comments. And one is, like Scott was pointing out, you could sit there and say, this is the most important area and I rated high. Because remember, at the end, you're seeing the ratings, but all the ratings are conglomerated together. Mm-hmm. And then the narrative responses are separated out. Okay. And so there's, if you just say, oh, this was very important, well, okay, did you rate high or rate low?
Yeah, I don't think
So that's almost a question for
that's
the Board on Track.
Yeah.
Is there a way to wait out?
I'm sorry, but isn't this just one of the tools that that's being used to rate?
No,
this is the only
CEO tool. That's what I'm trying to do.
But aren't we going to look at?
And the goals.
His
And the goals, yeah.
Right.
And
So
the goals.
this is just one tool.
There's one of the 2.
Right.
Yeah.
My understanding from Board on Track is that the committee is entrusted, each director, each trustee is providing a lot of information. And the committee is actually entrusted with weighing it,
Yes.
assembling it, synthesizing it, and then feeding it back to the group. So it's just, information in to the committee. It's not supposed to calculate screen out of school.
No, but what my point was is there are 13 areas here that he is going to be rated on.
Right, and we're relying on the committee's judgment and knowledge of this.
You might weight these things differently than I would.
And we're relying on the committee's judgment of their sense of the board as a whole.
That's
For those of you
that's
who
what
were
I
there,
understood.
am I
right?
correct or not?
I think that's
Yeah,
how they.
I think that's a good way of interpretation.
Way
Or as part of our
Just
instructions to our fellow board members, we could sit there and say, in such and so open narrative, put the top three most important areas in your estimation. That might be useful information for us to see, because if there's a great deal of, and to a certain extent it has this, because it says the key challenge is top three things that you should do in the next year to move the organization forward. I mean, there's, to some extent, some acknowledgement that there are certain issues more important than others.
So let's see. We had talked about governance, that at our next meeting in July, we would probably spend about 2 hours actually going through the data and coming up with themes to then generate a summary memo. So I heard what you said, which I think is probably good relative to yourself and Michael, having looked at a lot of this data before, even in your roles, and maybe that's a precursor, or maybe that's the focus group that actually does that effort.
Yeah, that's the question, right? They recommend that committee, right? The evaluation committee. When we talked about in governance, we talked about the 5 people in government to
Right.
do it, because that's how we've done it in the past.
Right.
But there really is no reason why it couldn't be the 2 of them.
Yeah,
And
and it might be a better process.
And most likely.
3 people, the chair included.
That's what they
not
recommend.
me. So that would work, and I just wonder if Michael Ken would need to get oriented to the tools the way we were.
Well, I don't know if they need the orientation quite as much, because they've seen the tool, they've seen it.
So
They know how to interpret it.
But these questions,
Yeah.
So there was a tutorial online. That's
Yeah,
a
there was a
tutorial
tutorial
that I assume that's a tutorial you all saw.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So that to me sounds like that might be a more effective way of doing it based on sort of prior experience and looking at the questions like this, and that maybe that becomes a subset.
So who's
that
the,
pulls the
have we
things out.
agreed upon who the
Yes.
5 people are?
Well, we're saying it wouldn't be 3 people now,
We're putting it to 3, which is the recommended number.
and it wouldn't be, we're saying that.
Pauline and Ken.
Are people comfortable with that? I mean, that is tapping into the expertise of the
I am.
professional expertise.
Yeah.
So I'm good. I just want to just quickly close on one point that Ken brought up. So the question you were saying is it feels fair, common competencies, but at the end of the process. So I think you don't have to answer tonight, but Dr. Claire should probably have an opportunity to come back and say, question number 7 feels unfair. Like that, of all the questions I looked at, I think they're all reasonable for you to expect. That's a good value. 2 of this one about X, Y, and Z, I feel, no one's talking about that. It wasn't an area of focus for me. So I would just say, Dr. McClay, just take one more look and see if you can say, yep, this is a fair evaluation, or if there's certain items that we might still look at the results, but you might say just you feel fair. I'd like to.
So just one other comment. Ken, you were mentioning about weighting. So I think we need to be a little cautious about how heavily we may weight something, particularly based on your previous comment that we gave Dr. McCleary a set of goals early on, but we didn't necessarily give him these competencies and specifically with them weighted.
I feel
So I think there just needs to be that balance.
I think for me, my starting point would be what you could talk. I look at the goals, and that would drive the weighting, right? So if there are connected dots of the 13 questions, the 5 of them really line up these goals, and those would be the ones that I think would be.
So the other thing I just want to get clarification on then is who we're sending the 360 out for direct reports. Do do we agree on the direct reports and department chairs?
Yes, I would vote yes.
So I'll just play devil's advocate for one moment.
Yeah.
And I think, Evie made the point, I think during the governance committee, a couple of times, some other folks did, we should follow the tool as the tool kind of prescribes to do things. And if we were to do that, follow that model, then we wouldn't include departments.
That's correct. I mean, it was mentioned, I think, even when we had our BOT rep on the phone, she did say that the tool is designed for direct reports, not non-direct reports. So I think we can interpret that, we can discuss it, that resolution.
I look at the questions, and to me, they're close enough, even if not direct reports, to be able to get responses, but I don't feel so strongly that I feel like,
I feel very strongly that they have a lot to say. I mean, our executive director is the face of the school there, and I feel that they have more of a pulse. I really think it should be out of the DAP policy.
So, okay, I'll just play devil's advocate again. I don't personally have a strong opinion, I'm just playing it out. And I don't know what the reality is, but ideally, they're reporting to the principal. So they have a somewhat step removed view of the ED. And so some of their comments may be perceptions more than reality. And hence, your direct...
Go back to perception is reality.
Well, so
not necessarily.
talking.
Not necessarily. Okay, so
I'm taking
I
a look at
reviewed
some
the
of the
family
survey
survey.
stuff.
I reviewed the family survey,
Yeah.
okay? And in open comment, people are making statements which are not true, but they have a perception that they're true, and they're blatantly not true. There are many comments in there that are absolutely true, but there are many that are themes of untrue comments. Okay, and because people are a step removed. For example, comments about athletics. I think when we went through the financial review, we see the school actually supports athletics. In fact,
That means we get off
subsidizes it.
Allison didn't appreciate it.
And yet, there's a clear perception out there that we don't support athletics, we don't invest enough in it.
Yeah, but we're getting off topic.
No, but I would say, but the point is, when people are removed, they have perceptions which aren't reality. And that's why I would argue these direct reports really should be the ones placing the evaluation. I don't know how removed the department heads are.
So I'll play my devil's advocate to yours, okay? If we were talking, and so, you're talking here about people who are at, from an organizational perspective, a far distance away, in the case of, say, parents making comments about whether the ED supports, whether the school supports athletics or not. In the case of the department heads, it's close enough organizationally, and I'm finding myself agreeing with Scott on this. So.
As someone who works in the school, I think that the role that of reporting, the sort of reporting structure we have here at AMSA, that there's enough sort of muddled of where the direct reports are and sort of how that chain of command works, that I think it would be fair to ask department chairs to be a part of that tool.
So I was with you, but what trumps for me is the amount of data. So I'm kind of hung up on the number of respondents thing, and I think, Scott's, I think at the end of the day, we'll get more information, and as long as we understand that we're looking at it with this commingled group, and it's a data point with X number of respondents, I can live with it. I think you're right in terms of really the fact that you don't really want to commingle these groups. In the same way that if we were evaluating the department chairs, I would want the principal to be evaluating versus Dr. Wright and that stuff, but this allows us to get more information. I think right now we can't get enough.
Yeah.
And so that's what trumps it for me, as long as we understand what it is and what it's not.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm just was playing devil's advocate, but then I do have one question. You mentioned just that the roles were commingled. Is that what we ultimately want? Do we want them to remain that way?
No, I think we want them to be clearer.
And when they are clearer, would we want to still the department head response?
Yeah, I just don't think I think there's just not enough people to break that. It just won't work. It's just,
I won't question.
yeah. So
Can
I think I think we could probably do better each year, and stuff, but I think for this one, I just can't get my hands on enough data, and I feel like I want to hear from everybody, and just, but we gotta report it in that manner. It's a commingled group, some may not have direct access, but others, general needs seem to be.
I think the downside risk of including the department head is small. I think it is incorrect, but it's a small downside risk. I agree with that.
Okay, I was gonna suggest doing a straw poll, but it actually sounds like everyone sort of agreed that having the department chairs would be.
But Rick, can you live with?
Liz, did you have an opinion on that?
No, I was actually agreeing, and having done 360s in sort of a consulting environment, I've seen it done with people outside of direct reports, and I think it works fine, so.
And I just can't help myself. One of the things that I'm struggling with here, by the way, is that 360s are not often done, I found, from an evaluative purpose for what we're trying to do. Usually there's a top-down evaluation, like
Right,
what
this
we're
is
doing, the board's
input.
doing.
Yeah,
This
this is input into
360
the board.
is usually done for the development. So if we were trying to get right in there for Dr. McCleary, so you can just choose to share or not. So we are kind of playing in some weird spaces, but I think at the end of the day, as long as we say, this is what the data's telling us, and these are the number of responses, we just use it the right way. But I have never experienced a 360 where you have top, bottom up to give someone an appraisal.
And the vendor never described it as 360.
Yeah, okay, it's a little funky to talk about it.
Yeah,
Remind
they
us
did
when
never
we
say
start
that.
using the term.
Yeah.
I
They
don't
used
even-
it as input, right?
Yeah,
It's
but I
really
think
input
that's
into,
right.
to
Yeah,
the appraisal
this
is
is
done by the
specifically,
State input,
yes,
it's
going
not-
toward development
yeah.
evaluation.
Right.
Yeah, I think the committee is well informed by our discussion, should proceed on its own.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right.
Okay. So that really, time-wise, I'm gonna say that's really probably about it for governance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's enough.
So do we have is the goal to have this deliverable ready for the next board
Yes,
meeting?
it is, yeah.
So when does the survey close? When does everybody
Okay,
have to
so
do this?
board members, so now I gotta look at it, because board members have a week, right? So board members, that's went out Monday night or so, I think.
To the 27th.
27th, okay. So the direct reports will go out tomorrow. I will send out a note.
So right after July 4th, we'll come back and we'll get it there.
It'll go out, but it's probably, given my schedule tomorrow, I probably won't get it out until tomorrow night. So they may not see it till Monday.
As initially, we said we were doing simultaneously, so.
I know, but we didn't talk about the,
Yeah, direct reports.
And
Yeah.
did we answer Mike's question, is it mandatory for these people to
I don't
answer
think
them?
we can make it
Yeah.
mandatory. We're not.
Strongly
supervisors.
suggest.
Yeah, we're not, we're encouraging them. It's
Encourage.
input, it's feedback, but I don't, we don't think we can make it. We don't employ them.
So Molly, we didn't have time here this time, and we're running about 40 minutes behind.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Jess took up one.
It's all, I'll take all the blame this time, I'll take it with me and pack it in my suitcase.
All right, fundraising and development.
Okay, so we did meet this month, we closed out the campaign at about $27,000, which is a 30% decrease from last year. Was 39, so 27, so it's like $12,000 less. Everything that we did all the things that we did the year before, plus an enhanced thank you program where every donor got thanked either by a student or by the SD. So we think that the poor performance was due probably to the levels of dissatisfaction in the audience and maybe a little bit of time. So that's closed. We're looking forward to next year, which we're going to be doing in November, December, and discussing in September here.
Yeah.
On Alumni Affairs, there is
Thank
a
you for that, by the way. Thanks for your work.
on Alumni Affairs, there is a reunion scheduled for Thanksgiving, which comes in two parts. One is the reunion, which is the Friday night, I think, of our first class who graduated from college, and then Wednesday morning before Thanksgiving is inviting all alumni in to visit, to come to the school. We're going to be assembling a focus group during the course of the summer or very early in September of alumni that we can find and see if we can form the seed of an association. It will be organized going into the reunion and kind of building out of that. And I would love with alumni experience, alumni association experience, to come and join the committee.
So actually, when I send out that note, what I'll do is I'll send out a draft, because then I'll send it around so that people can give me comments on that, because it sounds like something like that in particular, maybe something you want to
And it's
call out.
very, very exciting. Maureen's very excited about it. She spent a lot of time talking to Dr. McCleary. It's a tremendous, tremendous thing that we can start doing it, we can start doing it right,
Yeah.
and it can become very good.
I wonder if we should, create something where the alumni can speak to the senior class, or.
We do have that.
We
We have that in January.
Oh, you do, okay.
It's,
So the question is building on that, and it's what's going to make alumni feel welcome, and what do alumni need from the school now that they're not here anymore?
Okay, good.
And there's a lot of
so,
stuff to be learned.
yeah, one thing to think about that we've sort of encountered as alumni have come back to visit is I love the idea of just sort of, this is the one, everybody come back on this day, like a homecoming day, right? We have visitor policies in place for the safety of the school, and alumni are considered visitors, and so there's a process where they have to sign in and they have to be escorted, and sometimes alumni have felt a little bit like they've been put off by that, because they're like, wow, this is my school, why do I have to be escorted around? So that's sort of something to kind of,
Absolutely. We have to structure so that does not happen. But I actually consulted with a friend of mine who's head of Alumni Affairs at WPI, and I mentioned that the feedback, and he said, well, that's the first thing you have to fix, is that we need to structure the visit so nobody comes back feeling unwelcome.
You have to.
But they
Say,
still have to
You're
sign
still,
in.
you're
Yeah,
dealing
they
with
said
though,
that.
you're still dealing with adults, you're still dealing with, underage children.
Well, we're not going to do anything unsafe. What I'm saying is that we have to be very, very focused on providing a particular kind of experience to the returning alumni.
I think Scott's just saying that there's a different set of laws for WPI than there is for.
Yes, but being nice to alumni is not a problem.
yeah, but creating something so that alumni can, so that we can have people come back and visit and make them feel welcome without sacrificing any kind of safety, I think is something
Yeah,
that will be,
and also
it will be
that
sort of
we
something to be
can
addressed.
classes and
Yeah,
that kind of thing. But very exciting.
Good.
this is such an untapped resource, I'm excited about
It is
this.
an untapped resource, it's actually really, there's a lot. I mean, just had 181 new alumni, right? So there you go. All right, Education Committee. Ken, how would you like to structure this discussion?
Yeah, so the way I'd like to structure it is not spending 30 minutes. I don't think anybody has that energy. Just a quick update before we jump into the presentation, just to give you a few minutes to get the presentation out. So we've had our last meeting for the year, and Liz, the committee put together a self-assessment survey, which Liz has put together online, and we're in the process of finalizing that and getting it sent out to the committee so that they can do a self-assessment. So we won't be meeting again until September, mostly due to availability of the members. But during the time, I'm going to take a look at the results of the self-assessment, and I've already started reaching out to people asking if they want to continue on in the coming year. So everyone from the Education Committee was here at one point. I think maybe everybody's stuck around here. So you have Liz and myself, as well as Jess, Dr. McCleary, Dr. Curry. So Sharon is here, was here. Jess and Jen are here. Renee and Melissa are here. So we have a full house. I was interested in hearing your all's thoughts. Now, as you recall, I ended last year saying that what the committee was looking for you to, was looking for from you is a discussion relative to our findings. Findings came in sort of two flavors. One, at the more strategic level, about what do we mean by academic program success and faithfulness to the charter. And the board is responsible for those. Obviously, also the executive director and other members of the school are responsible for that as well. And so there's this sort of governance versus management operations aspect of that. So our responsibility in that comes from various regulations, Mass General Law, but also more generally from our responsibility to oversee the executive director. And then there was a set of 3 issues that were more tactical, and this is, I guess I need to number these, I'm not sure, it's the one that says committee challenges. So this is role of technology in supporting learning, and I think the committee is interested in getting some sense from you as to what you would like to do about that. What is the role of technology in supporting learning? And so we need to have a discussion about that. There are different ways of doing it. As I mentioned last month, you have various mechanisms. One is to investigate this ourselves as a board, or to defer it to a task force. You could bump it back to the Ed Committee, or of course, you could go to the expert, Dr. McCleary, asking him for his perspective to at least get the discussion going. He also obviously brings in his perspective from the management operations and may help us to start the discussion about sort of where our governance role begins and where his management operations role ends and where our governance role begins. So that's true for the role of technology in supporting learning, also for encouraging innovation in the classroom, as well as alternative learning strategies, and this runs the gamut from field trips, internships, travel, the use of online resources, outside resources. An example, Dr. McCleary, we were talking about this, and so Dr. McCleary said, well, we have an Amsac curriculum, and so if somebody wants to take, say, a different language than what is offered, they're going to be taking courses outside the Amsac curriculum. And so what is our role? As a school, we have to vouch for the quality of this educational experience. And so letting people incorporate sort of non-traditional learning strategies has its difficulties. On the other hand, alternative learning strategy also brings in a wealth of other ways to learn, to apply learning in new situations. And for some who have different learning styles, it may in fact help them to learn better. And so this runs the gamut obviously from special education, the students with special needs, to even people who are sort of more students who are in the more general education population, but again might learn a little bit differently by engaging in alternative learning strategies. These are not easy challenges because to get into these means that we're going to have to go and struggle with what we on the Education Committee spent many meetings doing, which was how do you engage with the school administration, obviously also the faculty, and sort of making sure that we're following the board governance role, but also carrying out our responsibility to academic program success. An example of that is that academic program success is tied to the accountability plan, which is written and we report out on annually. But the accountability plan does not equal all the things that we need for academic program success. The things that are in the accountability plan are fewer, and what we need to have a full academic program, a successful program, is much larger. And it gets into other areas such as the regulations, standard educational curriculum, special education needs, and things of that. So, so in that context, again, academic program success, faithfulness to the charter, looking at the role of technology, encouraging innovation, alternative learning strategies, and how do we engage in that in a governance way? How do we evaluate the success of those? Those are challenges that we have for you. And then, so as a board member, I'm interested in engaging this, but the education committee is also looking for some direction, some connection with you as well.
I'm sorry. What do you're asking us? I'm confused.
Do you want to discuss that tonight, or do you want, you're just saying that this is something that you'd like us to digest?
We have responsibility as a board to assure the academic program, academic program success and faithfulness to the charter. How are you all doing that? In an academic way. How do we know what our responsibilities are?
So I think you've laid out some really good challenges. I don't know, maybe we do this one at a time. So you're so close to it, Ken, so it's just, for me personally, it's hard at 9:30 at night too. It's a complex question. And there's also multiple dimensions, like there's money involved, right? So if everybody says we want to go one-to-one, we want to do all that type of stuff, so there's a lot of complexities here. So for me, what I looked at when I saw this is, all right, I think these feel like the right challenges, and I think the overall question you asked is the right one. I think we've got to figure out how do we talk about it, right? Because
How do we make this bite-sized chunks?
We got to talk about it at the right, either at the bullet point, or we say, okay, what?
Yeah, so they're listed in an order there, but not of any particular order of importance there.
I almost feel though, like honestly, that this should be talked at the ed committee, and then you guys come to us with kind of recommendations or something. You know what I'm saying?
Well, how would you judge those? How prepared are you all to judge those recommendations? If we came to you and said, and we said, you know, we think that every year, every student should have a field trip experience outside of the classroom.
I think we could have a great, robust discussion on that. If it's that specific of a recommendation, I think we could do that. But I'd want to understand what are the financial implications of that, and does our administration agree?
Exactly, and that's the point, is that there's an operational management part of this. And so, you know, part of this is not just sort of a fun philosophical discussion about how it'd be great to have, you know, field trips or allow people to tap into alternative learning resources that are outside of AMSA, but what are some of the challenges? And so, you know, a starting point might be, you know, if you want to do one at a time, is to, you know, maybe pick one of these and say to Dr. McCleary, we'd like you to come to, take a couple months and come to the August or, August, board meeting, or maybe September at the latest, and we want to start the discussion right there.
What about Scott's recommendation that the Ed Committee says, okay, so we thought a lot about this, and these are our top 3. Here's the roadmap, right? This is our priorities.
Says recommend focus
I mean,
areas.
I feel like you guys probably have a pretty informed opinion, and also opinions to react to it, and I'd love to hear Dr. McCleary. Maybe it starts with you guys saying, this is what we think is best for the school, and then it's a great mix of, people.
So, and the reason why the reason why we need to engage this is that we, as a board, have to engage in the same discussion the Education Committee did. And that is a discussion about what is our governance role? How do we assure academic program success and faithfulness to the charter? Using one of these as an example.
I get it. I think it's a really complex question for this.
You're absolutely right.
So I don't know. I think we need
And
to
you know, when Tom Taverna throws a spreadsheet up there, and we're looking at dollars and stuff, because we've been doing it for months and months and years, none of us objects to taking a look at, what the budget is because we've always done that, okay? We have not, as a board, done that with regard to, and to our roles relative to academic program success and faithfulness.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
So on this page, there's those 3 items: technology, innovation, alternate strategies. Maybe I'd recommend it's a 2-step process. So one is, do we agree that these are, in fact, as a board, do we in fact agree that these are the recommended, these should be, you're suggesting these are the recommended focus areas. A, do we agree these should be the focus areas? And then second, once we agree on what those focus areas are, then I think to your point, if you could, I don't know who should, whether AD should or the Ed committee should, come up with some suggestion on how do we address that focus area. And then there's a straw man against which we can, agree or challenge or whatever.
So I think that has to involve a conversation with Dr. McCleary, because Dr. McCleary, for a whole host of reasons,
Yep.
Dr. McCleary has views on this. He has experience with
Yep.
this. He's the one who will implement this, okay? And he's the one who, when you have the interface between our governance role and his role as heading the management and operations,
Yep.
that's where the board has got to come. Now, the education committee has said, here's those 3 issues. If you want us to take one of them and work with Dr. McCleary to prepare something for August and September, then I think that's what you say.
I have a question. Doesn't Dr. McCleary go to a lot of these education?
Well, I'm at all the education committee meetings. I've taken part in these discussions along with others, that go to the committee meeting, Ms. Bowen, a number of the people who are here, Dr. Curry. So, yeah, I have been involved with these discussions about these focus areas over the course of this past year. I think there needs to be a little more clarity about what constitutes academic program success and faithfulness to charter. I know I said this at the education committee meetings, but the way that the Department of Ed focuses on that is through the accountability plan, and the board obviously has oversight on that. Somebody mentioned earlier that the administration I report out on that, and usually most of those indicators come due in the summer or late summer, early fall. That's when we get results for the various measures, not all of them, but the majority of them. So that would be part of what I'm going to be bringing to the board in the coming months, so that the board can judge, at least from the standpoint of the Department of Education, how the academic program is succeeding or not succeeding. Because the way that the accountability plan is structured to begin with is it has to be rooted in what the Department of Education calls the key design elements, which in turn are pulled from the charter. So the Department of Ed says, okay, give us these key design elements, and then from those propose an accountability plan that is rooted in those key design elements, which are in turn rooted in the charter. Then they approve or don't approve. The board approve. Well, it goes like this. We show it to them. They say, okay, get your board to approve this. The board approves it, and then it becomes the blueprint for judging academic success, faithfulness to the charter. So I think Ken's point that he made earlier is that he has a broader vision of what constitutes academic program success. I'm not sure I completely see eye to eye with him on that all the time, but I do think that obviously there does seem to be a role in the education of our students in terms of how technology factors in. I know there's a lot of talk in the community, and I've talked with other schools, and the latest discussion tends to center on how computers will be used most effectively, idea of the one-to-one, or something that was current a couple years ago, the flipped classroom, these kinds of things. So I do think maybe at a certain level that is a board discussion if it's going to involve, to Ken's point, a lot of infusion of resources and a general philosophical sort of shift. Because I've talked with the department chairs, for example, about the one-to-one, and there are varying opinions about its usefulness, notably among the computer science teachers. They tend to think that it has to be looked at very, very carefully to see whether it's going to in fact be more useful than detrimental. Innovation, I think, is such a general term that it requires a certain amount of clarification. Just doing something new, period, seems to me to not get you very far. It seems to me you have to come up with the goals that you're trying to achieve and then decide if you can get there doing something differently than you've done in the past, or maybe doing something better that you know, continuing to do something only better. So I guess that's where I feel, that's what I feel has to be talked about there. Alternative strategies, again, very, very broad idea, just doing something other than you're doing now. And again, I think we do field trips, we do have travel, although I believe this past year we didn't have international travel. We're looking at that for next year. Internships is an area where there's probably need for some more input from the school side, because not everything that has been called an internship really rises to the level that we're doing now. I think rises to the level of a true internship. You know, it might be something like writing a few stories for the website, but then it could also be, you know, working with a legitimate scientific enterprise in a much more involved way. So that needs clarifying. The online resources, again, it really depends. You know, if you're going to offer if you have the demand, say 25 people want to take Hebrew or, you know, I don't know, whatever language, then okay, maybe that's a legitimate demand, and you can try to satisfy it by coming up with a quality online offering. So that's kind of my big picture.
So here's my challenge. I feel like a lot of really good work went into this, and it feels like a really important topic. Like, this is meaty, important stuff that I know I have passion and feelings about, and I apologize, but I don't think I have the mental aptitude to have it right now.
Well,
And I apologize, because everyone stayed late, but I didn't want to disrespect. A lot of work went into this, and you're asking some really good, important questions,
So,
but I don't know if I can do it.
I don't think anybody's expecting that we're going to solve this problem in the next 5 or 10 minutes. I think what the Education Committee is trying to get across is that it does work to send to you in terms of recommendations, and at that point, you need to then say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And so we're either going to research this on our own, or we're going to go to Dr. McCleary and say, Dr. McCleary, you know, you just said some interesting things about the use of technology in the classroom, and we'd like to hear more. If you're talking to the department chairs and faculty and so forth, we'd like to hear more about what are the challenges, and, you know, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges, et cetera, et cetera. Or you might go to, you know, there are other things that you could do. But this is an ongoing discussion that we have to have, and it's not going to be something that any one meeting is going to solve.
Yeah, so I just want to confirm, though, kind of process-wise, how we handle this. So is kind of the first step, I'll just go kind of back to that again, is the first step that we, as a board, fundamentally agree that these are the right focus areas? That there should be something else on it or not something else? And then once we're in agreement with that, then agree on what is the process to go through each focus area, or, well, prioritizing first and then go through each one. That is to say, to your point, you know, does Dr. McCleary lead charge with the effort, or does the ed committee, or kind of jointly do you do it, and come up with a straw man proposal to bring to the board, and then we kind of review that and you know, react to that. So, I mean, is that the way we should go about it, or?
That's one.
So I propose that.
So I like that. What would be helpful for me would be to know, did you whittle down to get to these 3 focus areas? And if so, then what were some of those other areas, so we can sort of look at it in its entirety and say, yep, based on that list, and others I may or may not be able to think of, yep, I feel these are the 3 that I would focus on. So sort of seeing that.
I guess my
But just
question would be,
before you answer that question specifically, can we agree on what the process should be?
Yes.
Because that,
I just want to add on to
Yeah.
that, which I agree with you 100%, but I just want to make sure that the Ed Committee and Dr. McCleary kind of get together, and they're coming out
Yeah.
with these
Yeah.
That's how
3
we
or
got here.
this is how you got here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, as Dr. McCleary said, he's been in every meeting, as has Jeff, so, you know, I mean, they've been active participants, and that's why the committee thought it would be good for you all to engage in the same level of discussion to try to figure out what your board governance role is, just like you do, you know, with strategic planning or with finance, you know, looking at the financial reports or fundraising or what have you.
So I think one of the fundamental things we'd like from the board, if I may, Ken, is this issue of what is the role of the education committee in terms of governance. So for instance, we could come up with a plan on, let's say, technology, and let's say in the ed committee we get up this thing and we're like, oh, 1-to-1, and we're going to do this, and we come to the board and we present the straw man. I think before we get to that point, we want to know, is that the role of the ed committee to come up with it? Is it the board's job to be making decisions about a 1-to-1 program? Is it the ed committee's job to be making a decision about that? And if we don't want to spend a lot of time developing a plan to bring to you if at the end we say, wait, this isn't a board function. Am I off base here with that, Ken?
I would say that I think just as the education committee has benefited from hearing Dr. McCleary and his perspectives, benefited with experience in it, I think the board as a whole needs to hear of this. And I guess I would just encourage you to pick one of these three to start with, whatever the board feels, you know, to start with, as being, okay, so let's take a look at role of technology or alternative learning strategies. You know, how does this fit into our charter, into being faithful to our charter? How does this fit into academic program success? And understand some of the realities that Dr. McCleary is having to deal with when presented with these things. If you all have read the charter, you realize an awful lot of stuff in the charter that we don't do anymore, and we haven't done largely because, you know, a school our size can't do that. Decisions have been made over many years. But I don't think anybody thinks that we're not being faithful to that charter. Certainly, these found us to be faithful to our charter in the most recent recharter.
So I like the focus area. I think those are good challenges. I like the focus areas. I think we should start with technology. And I'd be very interested in a recommendation under the guise of our role of making sure the faithfulness to the charter, that the education committee in partnership with Dr. McCleary come back and say, this is what the roadmap should be. These are the things that we need to focus on. These are our priorities. And these are the operational implications. And then let us have at it. Let's have a discussion about whether that feels right.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I guess what I would say is that since the education committee is not meeting until September, I think a good starting point would, you know, be to ask Dr. McCleary to spend, you know, just 15 minutes talking about some of the discussions he's had on the role of technology, if that's the one.
That'd be a great primer for.
I think it would be an excellent one, and it would give you a sense of some of the discussions that we've had on the education committee.
So I think these three are great. I'd throw two other out there. So one is, and it actually came up in the parent survey also, making sure our students have the right types of study skills and organization skills, self-management skills to be successful and self-driven. Research shows that gaps in that area can be, you can get through high school theoretically reasonably well, maybe not here, but theoretically reasonably well. And then once you hit college, if you don't have those skills, you can really suffer. That's one area. And then another is how do we measure our success in terms of actually getting students to be college ready and career successful. You know, a lot of schools just, they don't follow their students.
I think it's a great one.
So those are the two areas.
We had some conversations about that. It's a complicated topic.
I think some of these we can also talk about, like we can actually devote substantive time in January, and so as we think about this, I mean, I think it's, whichever one we pick, I'm actually not a fan of technology as the first one, whichever one we pick is sort of the first area that we can sort of pilot, but then I think we need to really look in depth at some of these things. Because that's where we have, you know, 6 hours for this. And these are all longer term, you know, substantive, meaty
They are, but I hate to keep starting to sound like a broken record. I think you all would be interested to hear Dr. McClure's perspective on these topics and how, there is it is a difficult challenge figuring out governance role versus management role. And so when clearly, we start sitting here, the board's not going to sit here and start picking, what computers we're going to use or what, software, or start directing teachers on how to use it. But on the other hand, the use of technology, a number of parents have talked about how their kids, they go off to college, and is part of getting them ready for, college and career readiness, using technology appropriately is part of that.
Just one last. What's that?
At 9:30.
I've got one more thing to say. I got one more thing left. You may be able to line up from a process standpoint stuff like the committees. So finance committee, what is your opinion as a committee on technology, government, things like that, and a task force. So facilities, recruiting, regional, each of those task forces may have an opinion around this topic as well. So there may be facilities implications around technology, or all this work you've been doing, Ken, around the regional and task force. Technology can be a tremendous enabler for to be able to, right? So, I would.
You're not negotiating the contract anymore. We ought to have.
But as we pick a topic, we can build process around our committees and task
I'll
forces.
start inviting you.
So if we do use technology as first one, the first probably should be the philosophical discussion and then that next step.
And then I think, right.
I'm sorry, the first topic, what?
First discussion is philosophical discussion.
Yeah. So do you want to do technology, or do you want to do?
But are we agreed on what the 5 areas, or
I
the
like
3
those
areas?
areas
are?
that you
I do like areas.
Yeah, the 5 areas we're agreeing upon.
Okay.
But I think it's okay to add, to start to say, okay, I had another idea. I don't think we have to lock out those. We could say it's these 5 are starting with technology, and then others.
Well, so the 3 that we offered up were offered up largely because we actually devoted some amount of time and discussion. We think that those have incubated long enough to have a useful discussion.
So to that point, Ken, maybe the one that I'll throw this either technology, or if one is really well incubated, it might be the best kind of first one to get to.
Well, yeah,
so that
that was actually the reason why I didn't suggest technology as the first one, because I think technology has much broader reaching implications in terms of financial implications and infrastructure challenges, whereas something like alternative strategies.
Yeah, but see, it's for that reason. There's a good illustration, because to Mike's point, it gets into infrastructure, it gets into budget, it gets into what would the teachers implement, and again, that is one of the 3. That is probably the one that we spent the most time talking about. The other 2, I think, are probably equally ready. Certainly the alternative learning strategy. I think Dr. McCleary had a lot of good stuff to add on that as well.
It may be ambitious to try to do. You may decide that next year we're going to go after 2 of these.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then align goals and all that type of stuff. It may just be.
So which one?
Yeah. So which one? What do you think? Rather start small, big. Ev?
I would go with the committee.
I would go with what the committee's recommending.
I agree.
I think the committee would rather have you engage in one that is of interest to you.
I think
They're offered up
They're
3.
all of interest, because we
They're all
agreed on them as.
Pick one that you think we should go with.
I think the committee is most prepared to help us on technology.
That seems to be the longest.
So you've already.
Well, I
I
think
think-
that would be illustrative, because I think Dr. McCleary had some good things to say about that, and it's a good illustration, but the other 2 would work as well.
I think technology also offers another plus of it, is that it's a concern from the stakeholders.
Yeah.
So it's not just sort of internally driven here, but we've heard more about. So
All right?
I mean, there've been other there are
Yeah,
other
the alternative strategies too.
but
So can we start, say, at the August, give Dr. McCleary time to put together some thoughts, and since we've got a full meeting next time, at least sort of work towards that.
Just put some like bookends in there for us, right? So like, as you start thinking about technology, what's in, what's out, like just frame it, right?
Will do.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. We have a very short executive session, just to give an update on pending litigation. So,
Make a motion, we adjourn the executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation, not to return to open session.
not to return to open session, yes.
That was a motion, somebody's got
A
a
second.
Okay, Mike seconds. Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm going to invite Tom Alvarado to join us, and Dr. Curry. Thank you.
I don't know what I've got.
All right, you coming? You know there's a big heat tonight. You know it's going to be a long night. Well, whatever he's in my head with me left me about 2 hours ago. You make it up. You see that.
Coffee class, yeah, that one, Barbara Spring.